Has US President Joe Biden added more fuel to an already burning fire? With less than 2 months to go before he leaves the White House, Biden has lifted restrictions on Ukraine, allowing Kyiv to use long-range missiles on Russian territory following months of pressure from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. 2 days after being given the green light, Ukraine struck deep inside Russian territory using an American-made supersonic tactical ballistic missile called the Army Tactical Missile System. The attack occurred on the 1000th day of the Russo-Ukrainian War. The Kremlin retaliated the same day, unveiling its revised nuclear doctrine, which lowers the threshold for using its nuclear arsenal. So what revisions were made to Moscow's nuclear doctrine? In its previous version, the doctrine said Russia would only use nuclear weapons in response to an attack that threatened the country's existence. This rule has just been revised. Moscow is now stating that it can use nukes in response to any aggression that threatens Russia's sovereignty or territorial integrity. And it's not just any threat. The revision also applies to conventional weapons that pose a critical threat to Russia. For the first time since the war broke out, the doctrine places an emphasis on Belarus and outlines that any aggression against Minsk will also be taken as an attack on Russia itself, and that such aggression will therefore justify a nuclear retaliation. Revisions to the doctrine also target threats like the buildup of foreign missile defense systems and foreign troops near Russia's borders, and the position of nukes in non-nuclear states that have signed the Treaty of the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. The doctrine also defines a potential opponent as any state or military alliance that has significant military power and sees Moscow as a threat. During a speech in September, Russian President Vladimir Putin said the forthcoming updates were driven by rapidly changing military and political realities, especially the growing threats against Russia. The latest version of the doctrine builds on the 2020 version that had already outlined several scenarios that could trigger the use of nuclear weapons. The latest updates makes it clear that Russia will use nukes if it faces any kind of aggression that threatens its survival, whether the threat involves a ballistic missile attack, the launching of weapons of mass destruction on Russian or Belarusian soil, or conventional attacks on critical Russian infrastructure. The US, EU, and Germany condemned the revised doctrine, calling it another round of nuclear posturing by Putin, with experts saying the move was meant to pressure Germany into backing down on its support for Ukraine. Could Biden's decision to allow Ukraine to use US weapons against Russia be the final nail in the coffin of peace in the region?